Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Coffee with a Journalist, brought to you by the team at One Pitch. Are you looking for a more efficient way to find and pitch the right journalists? Head over to our website at onepitch.co to learn more. Today, we're live from Ireland with our guest, David Gilbert, a reporter from Wired. He delves into the complex world of online extremism and disinformation, exploring how journalists navigate this evolving beat, collaborate with publicists, and cover far-right movements. Join our host, Beck Bamberger, for an engaging conversation on the realities of modern news reporting. Grab a coffee and tune in.
Welcome, everyone. This is Coffee with a Journalist. Live from Ireland, we have Dave Gilbert, who is a reporter at Wired, covering online extremism and disinformation. What a beat. What a time. David, we appreciate you being here, but let me first also just mention what we're doing here on our little podcast called Coffee with a Journalist. I'm Beck Bamberger. We're here to demystify how relationships and the working systems work between publicists and reporters, journalists, freelancers, editors, the people that make the media world go round, frankly, which also involves, of course, publicists. So, David, thank you for being here, and hello from Ireland. Oh my gosh.
Thanks for having me, Beck. It's great to be here.
Yes.
Yeah, live from Cork in Ireland.
Hey, and you said it's windy and cold and all that. It's classically winter in Ireland.
It's gone down to like -6 degrees last night, and so that means the entire country shut down. -6 degrees Celsius.
Yes,
not 6 degrees Fahrenheit. So just in case people are worried that. But it's still cold, and everything shuts down when it gets any little bit cold because we just cannot handle extreme temperatures or extreme weather.
I was going to say, I don't think of Ireland as like, ooh, cold. I think of it as windy and rainy and all that. But in green.
More so, yeah. But everywhere is being affected by the climate change these days.
As we were just talking about. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
We're getting our bit of it here as well. So
Mm-hmm.
It's annoying more than anything else.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm glad you're inside and you're cozy in your professional studio, as you said, with your kids' bunk bed. So we're really killing it here in our studio situation.
Just waiting for my kid to walk in the door now and really mess up the recording. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, we'll take it. Okay. So David, you've had quite the career. As we know, you used to be at Vice. You were at International Business Times. You are now at Wired. You've been there since 2023. This is quite the beat that you cover. Before we get into that, I like to ask everybody, what would you say is the coverage of Wired today?
Oh, today. Well, yeah, it's interesting because you mentioned Wired to people, or I mentioned Wired to people, and they kind of have a vague idea that it's this tech magazine, which it was for so many years and still is. It's still a magazine. And its main coverage area has been Silicon Valley and smartphones and laptops and the technology behind those stuff. Yeah. And for years it was like that. But I think I joined in 2023 as part of what was a new politics team, because the editor here, Katie Drummond, she previously worked with her at Vice, and she came over. One of her stipulations for joining was that she wanted to create a politics team because she felt that technology and politics had become so intertwined that it was crazy for a publication like Wired not to have a politics team. So now our coverage is obviously on my beat, it's the kind of political side, but even on the business and enterprise side, all of the coverage is around companies and individuals who are people like Mark Zuckerberg, people like Elon Musk, who are making such a massive impact on US society at large rather than just in Silicon Valley, and how those impacts are playing out and impacting people's lives. So it's a pretty broad coverage, and I suppose when I joined initially, I was a bit skeptical because I was wondering how would my beat fit in with Wired's coverage, because typically Wired didn't cover the kind of things that I was writing about. But
but here you are.
It makes sense now.
Yeah, it does.
14 months later. So yeah, that's kind of what Wired is covering these days.
And now let's get a little bit more into your beat. So you're alluding to, the politics and the people, the players who are making it go round, and it's getting intertwined ever more in politics. But on your LinkedIn, and as we just talked about, online extremism and disinformation. So I can only imagine the pitches you get, David, because maybe you're not getting pitches of anybody who wants to say like, hey, guess what? I have a client in extremism. No, but man, how do you feel about your coverage beat?
It depends on what time of day it is and whether I've had a beer or not.
Yeah. Very Irish answer.
Yeah, mostly it's an absolutely fascinating beast to cover. I feel privileged to be able to write about it. I suppose I began back when I was working with the International Business Times in the UK in London, starting to cover disinformation. That was kind of 2013, 2014 time. So over a decade ago, and it was very early days in terms of what was happening. I was also covering the hacktivist movement, Anonymous and stuff like that. So that was kind of where it all started. And then, as you say, I moved to Vice. And there I really began to focus on the impact that disinformation was having on countries outside of the US, Myanmar, Ethiopia, Sri Lanka, and how Facebook in particular was being weaponized to have negative impacts in those countries. And that beat then kind of morphed. I still cover a lot of that stuff, but I also started investigating online conspiracies, particularly QAnon, for a number of years was one of my main focuses, and more broadly, kind of online conspiracies. And that then paved the way for kind of looking at even more extreme online communities, including online militias, how they were organizing online, and kind of more generally the far right, white power movement, stuff like that online. And that's where I am now. And how most recently, I suppose, it's how those communities have interacted or moved to become part of the mainstream political system in the US, and how we've seen really extreme ideas become mainstream thanks as a result of the Trump and the GOP more generally kind of shifting to the right.
Mm-hmm. So if we may go into your inbox then, are you getting any viable pitches that are useful to you? I would imagine it would be from thought leaders, experts in certain domains.
No. The idea of getting a pitch from a thought leader just leaves me cold. Because if someone has to describe themselves as a thought leader, I feel that they've kind of missed the boat if I don't know that they are a thought leader.
Good point.
I suppose there are people who I would rely on to send me pitches, and typically they kind of will avoid my inbox more so and get me on WhatsApp or Signal. These would be researchers, and not researchers, but I suppose the publicists for researchers and research groups who I've worked with for years and kind of understand what I would be interested in covering and the types of content that Wired would cover. Now, that doesn't mean to say that they still don't send stuff that makes absolutely no sense for coverage, because I guess they're doing their jobs. But yeah, the idea of someone sending a cold email with thoughts from a thought leader on extremism, it just really doesn't work.
So is it safe to say you don't want pitches?
Oh, no, I love getting pitches.
Okay. Tell us more, though. But let's talk about the viable ones.
So I suppose the viable ones they have to have new information. The idea of sending an email with just someone suddenly had a thought about extremism or disinformation and wanted to share it, fine, but that's not a news story. I very much focused on news. I do some longer form features as well, but that's not something I would typically look for pitches on. I'm looking for news, and specifically news that no one else is going to get. So obviously exclusives are better. Harder and harder to come by those, though, because people want as much coverage as they can get. But no, pitches with access to information before publication, so embargoed reports, but also not just a report, but also access to the authors of the report, so that if it is not going to be an exclusive, that I would be able to speak to the researcher, get some different quotes than the ones that are in the press release or the report that's going out, and also access, if possible, to the actual data that they gathered to compile their report, whether that's TikTok videos spreading anti-Semitic hate, or a list of Twitter accounts that are part of a far-right network, so that I can then verify that information for myself. So if that's all there and it's a new and interesting topic, then I'm more than happy to get those pitches via email and work with the publicist to craft something that's different and unique to what everyone else would be writing.
Okay. So he's open for pitches. Do you then consider the subject line? Is that important? Or are you opening every single pitch you get? So this is where we want to get into, like, how do you manage your flow of emails?
Well, I have no unread emails in my inbox.
Oh, you're one of those. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm on that too. I am that. I have to get to
incredibly proud of.
Zero. Very good.
But I'm not very good at managing. Like I snooze emails a lot. So, until 8 o'clock the next morning. Yeah. So they'll be top of my email list, and that's fine. But then I find myself just dismissing them at 8 o'clock next morning, because either I have forgotten what interested me about those emails at the time, or I just don't have time to look through them. But no, I at least look at every subject line before deleting it. I don't press click all and delete.
You're not one of those. Okay.
No, that terrifies me, because
yes, I know.
What if you miss something?
I know. Yes, exactly. Same.
Someone said to me they came back from holidays earlier this week and they had 6,000 emails to get through. No, they had been off for like a month, and they said they were considering just clicking select all and deleting.
No.
Just going, I know.
No.
I was kind of living vicariously through them, though, and I said, do it, just for the thrill of being part of doing it. Not actually doing it myself.
For many people who aspire to get the zero unread, many of your peers, by the way, who come on the show, what's your process? Are you just crazy like me?
I think so. I think I find it difficult to check my inbox and then not deal with it immediately.
Yes.
But I probably spend more time making sure I'm at zero than I should. And I should probably spend more time replying to emails in a timely manner. But what can you do?
What can you do? We're just trying to do the best.
Today's interview will continue after this brief message brought to you by OnePitch. Are you curious to learn about the unique ways OnePitch helps brands engage with the right journalists? Head to onepitch.co and create your own custom media list in 5 minutes or less. Now back to today's episode.
Dave, is there a way in which you like to build relationships with publicists, if at all?
This is a really tricky one. I don't particularly like building relationships with publicists beyond it being a very professional, transactional.
Yeah. That's
case.
totally
that
okay.
Kind of relationship, yes. When publicists try to send me messages on a weekend, ask me how I'm doing, I'm like, what? No. What's going on? What's happening? I don't want. I have enough people in my life.
Wait.
And it does happen.
Those?
And it.
Wait, but seriously, people just like, hey, how's your weekend going, Dave?
Yeah, over Christmas. How are your holidays going? I'm like, what?
You don't need to know that.
I know it's rare, but it does happen, and it's a strange one, because the best relationships I have with PR people is people who know exactly the type of information that I want or that would interest me, and even if they don't, they'll ask a question very succinct. They'll get an answer and they'll leave me alone. They won't try and sell me on it over and over again, which is what some people do as well. And yeah, so I find it difficult to become overly familiar with publicists or PR people unless I know them. Like, I know a few from working previously. They were journalists and they worked in the past, so that's fine, obviously, because we had been friends already. So And that's, it's great because I can just ask them straight out if anyone else is working on this story or whatever. And it's really helpful. But trying to build a relationship purely based off this idea that they're trying to get me to cover something that I may not want to cover is just a bit strange.
Mm-hmm. I see what publicists are doing. I feel for it because it's like, oh, well, it sounds good. It seems polite. How is it going, Dave? How was it? Did you get something for Christmas? It's like that thing, but I cannot emphasize this enough of the now 200 plus shows we've done here. It's just, we don't know each other. Okay. We don't need to waste 3 sentences about your cat or whatever the heck or whatever, unless that is sincere. And I have been over to Ireland or whatever, and we shared a beer or whatever. Okay. Then that's different. But no, it's just not. So the falseness of it is like, oh, it's a cringe for so many journalists.
It is. And it's very different from having worked in the UK for 5 years.
Interesting. How so?
The difference is, like, I found the UK was much more, I suppose it was more straightforward. That there was less of the, how are you doing? How are your kids? That stuff than there is in dealing with publicists from the US. And then publicists who are based in Ireland, and there's not many because obviously I'm focused on the US more so than Ireland, but I do cover some things here in Ireland, and the publicists in Ireland are incredibly straight to the point, and there is no how are you doing? It's an
American thing. It's totally an American thing.
It's like, it's not a totally American thing because there are some publicists in the UK and Ireland who would do this, but it's definitely more prevalent, I find, among US publicists.
Yeah, it's an American thing.
Sorry, I don't mean to be mean.
No, I think it's just truly American. How's it going? What's happening? How you doing? It just is. It just is. Okay, Dave, real quick though, because this is unusual. You're in Ireland, but you're covering America so much. How do you feel that helps versus hinders perhaps your coverage chops?
That's a good question. It hinders it because I'm not in America, and it's much harder for me to get there to cover on the ground something that's happening. That's lessened by the fact that most of the topics I cover are online.
Global. Topics. Yeah, that's true.
I was in the US for 2 weeks for the election and traveled around, and that was really interesting. And I do travel there for certain events and to actually meet the people I'm covering. But I can do pretty much 80-90% of my job sitting here under my son's bunk bed on the south coast of Ireland.
Love it.
So it doesn't hinder it that much. It does help, but I think because a lot of people in America do like Irish people.
Yes, we do.
So
we have
my accent does seem to kind of drop people's barriers, drop a bit, I find.
Yeah.
And I know I've spoken to, I don't know if you know Donny O'Sullivan from CNN.
No.
So he covers a lot of the similar topics. He's from Kerry, so he's from the next county over. But he lives in New York, and he's out on the road constantly. But he said the same thing to me. He said like that the minute they hear your Irish accent, they're much more open. And he's from CNN. He's talking to like really ultra pro-Trump, pro-MAGA people who would typically hate CNN, but they still talk to him. And he thinks it's because of his Irishness.
The accent carries. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I do kind of typically put it on a bit more when.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good technique.
Yeah. It can help. I have to admit.
I love it. Use the skills, use the gifts you have.
Use what I got. Yeah.
Use what you got. Okay. Dave, we touched on it a little bit, with thought leaders and stuff. Are there any sources though that you're like, yes, I really am looking for those?
For a long time, I was chasing after sources who worked inside Facebook and X and Google and places like that. Not so much more recently. The people I want to talk to are people who are part of extremist militias, people who are inside far-right Telegram groups, people who are planning the next January 6th attack. And it's really difficult to get access to those spaces.
Yeah.
So the next best thing is knowing the researchers who do have access to those spaces undercover. and they're monitoring them. And therefore, it's building a relationship with those people who are, I suppose that's where I put more relationship building than into the kind of direct journalist publicist effort, is because I can talk to the researchers very specifically about very specific topics that are of interest, that I know of are interest to them, and they know of our interest to me. So I'll ask them questions. They might send me a tip saying, have you seen this? So that relationship works really well because we've a shared area of interest that we're both happy to talk about. We're not talking about our cats or our holiday plans and stuff, but so that I find works really well. I suppose the one other source then that I'm trying to develop or cultivate all the time is people who are close to, I suppose, people who they're not part of any research organization. They're not necessarily an academic, but they are incredibly skilled at finding information online. You send them the name of someone and they're going to send you back 6 pages of information about them.
It's probably not a chat GPT thing.
It's not, no.
Yeah.
But like these people are typically, they have another job, and they also spend all of their spare time monitoring and tracking the groups that I report on, but they track them at a much more granular level than I ever could, because they can just they decide to spend hours and hours of their day doing this for whatever reason, because they're not getting paid in most cases. It's absolutely
like a hobby. It's one of those. It's the people who are updating Wikipedia pages.
Exactly, but even more out there because no one is paying attention to them. No one is except for journalists who need information. And that's the relationship I'm trying to build as well, because I know how valuable they are. When I need to write a story about a certain topic, I need someone I can call immediately. And so I need to
you need those people.
Cultivate those relationships way more than I do a publicist relationship, because I feel a publicist, even if I have ignored a publicist for 11 months out of the year, when I do finally need to contact them, they'll still answer me because that's their job.
That's right. We're here to serve. Yes.
And it's horrible, but that's the way it is, I guess.
That's the way it is, Dave. That's what we're here for. Okay, David, I have a quick rapid fire question set, and then we can wrap it up. Are you ready?
Hang on.
Great.
Right.
Video or phone interview?
Sorry, I know this is meant to be rapid. Video.
Video. Okay, video. Bullet points or paragraphs in a pitch?
Bullet points.
Short or long pitches?
Short.
Short. How short, though?
4 sentences.
4 sentences. That's the magic number. Okay. I just was on my own webinar showing example pitches that worked, and 4 is the magic number. Okay. Images attached or a Dropbox zip file?
Oh, images attached.
Always. Email or a DM of some sort on LinkedIn or wherever you're getting a DM?
Probably a DM. Again, it depends on the pitch, but if I know the person, DM.
Okay. I don't hear that answer too much. Yeah. By the way, I need some coffee. I didn't get my coffee yet. Okay. 1 follow-up or multiple?
Oh, none? Is that
none? 0. None. Yes, 0. Direct?
No, look, one follow-up is fine.
Okay. Direct or creative subject lines?
Direct.
The best. Press releases or media kits? For you, probably not.
Neither.
NA. Yeah, NA.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Is there a time you usually read pitches? Now you're getting you're in inbox to 0, so I imagine all the time.
But also, this is back to the Ireland situation. So if you send me a pitch late at night in the US, like we'll say 10 o'clock your time, I'm going to wake up and it's going to be top of my inbox in the morning.
That's right.
That's probably a better time to get me than because by about 12, 1 o'clock, my editors are waking up and I'm doing something else. So early in the morning, my time is good.
Is very good for pitches. And by the way, as we know, publicists, you can then you just schedule the email. Schedule it.
You
don't have, it's so simple. Okay. David, thank you for being here today. This has been just lovely. I love that you use your Irish accent and that you're under the bunk bed of your child's living quarters. And that is great.
I only pay him like $300 a month.
See, but deal.
Yeah.
Love that. Everyone, this is David Gilbert, who is a reporter at Wired, covering quite a number of things in the politics of the U.S., including disinformation and extreme online extremism. So, David, thanks again for being here. I hope you have a plentiful, good year of coverage. I was going to say wild year of, no, I don't. I wish you not a wild year of coverage, please.
I don't think you need to wish for it. I think it's going to happen.
There you go. Yeah. You already got it going. David, appreciate you so much. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me back. Really appreciate it.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's Coffee with a Journalist episode featuring David Gilbert, a reporter at Wired. For more exclusive insights about the journalists on this podcast, subscribe to our weekly podcast newsletter at onepitch.co/podcast. We'll see you next week, but until then, start great stories.